Since we started to look at the eye, let's actually look at it in a little bit more detail. So if you're not familiar with actually what the eye consists of, this is kind of a basic overview of what the eye is and the major components. So as we start, we're with the pupil, and the pupil is the opening which light passes. And related to it is the iris, and this is the color that you get of your eye. And the iris will actually vary the size of the pupil. So if your iris retracts a little bit, your pupil gets larger. And as we said in previous videos with diffraction limiting, the larger the opening, this is the opening we're talking about, it's the opening the pupil, or how wide the iris opens. We can see that the larger it's open, the better our resolution is. So technically speaking, if we actually run the numbers on this, the light that comes in, if we're in a little bit lower light, our pupil will be dilated, get a larger opening, so that means we actually get better resolution the lower the light is. So if we're in bright light, one way, we get one resolution. If we're in darker, we'll get better. And actually, if you look back at the eye test, it was something that wasn't mentioned, but the eye test is actually supposed to be run at a particular light, ambient light, just so your eye is all adjusted the same way. Related to this, in terms of how the eye works, is the lens. And there's a cornea that comes along with this. And those two, the lens and the cornea, together will actually form the refracting power of the eye. So this is how our light will be focused on in our eye. And where it focuses in is at the very back of the eye. And what we're going to do is we'll place our detector there. I'm saying detector, it sounds kind of physicsy, but really our detector is nothing more than our retina. And a retina is a way to transfer the signal to our brain through the optical nerve. So what we're going to do is we take the iris is our opening, the lens is how we focus the light, and our retina is how we detect it. Or this is the place, the retina is where the image needs to show up. Well, three of the standard problems that people have with their eyes is nearsightedness, farsightedness, and astigmatism. So nearsightedness, known as myopia, is a condition where the lens can't properly focus light far away. You can see things only near. And what happens is that objects, when they come in, will appear fuzzy if they're far away. And this happens because the lens in the cornea itself will actually focus too quickly. So what we need to do is, if we put corrective lenses on, is we need to add another lens that will cause the light to focus not at this point, but we want to have the lens to focus back here, the glasses plus the cornea lens combination to focus back on the retina. So if it starts out appearing fuzzy, we add in corrective lens, and it's actually a lens that doesn't focus. It's a defocusing lens, and the light comes in, it slightly defocuses. When it hits the second lens, now it's going to refocus, and the focal point of this, where our lens is further back. Well, farsightedness is the opposite, hyperopia, which means that the light is going to not focus in this region, but rather it's going to focus behind it. So our focal length is too long. We can tend to see short or far distances, but not short distances. So what we have to do is we have to correct this. We want to move this focal length closer, so we put a new lens in, and the new lens is a focusing lens, and the light comes in, it starts to focus, and then it actually focuses more once it gets to the actual lens of our eye. And we can see that this happens and we get a clear image. Now in both of these cases, actually in all the cases that we look at, our eye, we have little muscles up here and on the bottom of our eye that will actually cause the lens to change shape. So if we look at an object that's close or an object far, we know that for one lens that the image is going to move along with the object location. Well, our lens can actually be deformed. We can deform the lens in our eye, the cornea of the lens, and we pull on it with little muscles and we reshape the lens to cause it to have a slightly different focal length. And our eyes are really good at doing this relatively quickly, but it's the reason why if you're looking at for your computer screen, if you look at your computer screen and look off the side of your eye, why you can't actually see maybe the wall, or if you have an open door nearby, why you can't see that stuff in focus as well, is because you can only focus at one plane at the same time. The last major type of error that happens in our eye, not error, but condition that we see in our eye, is called astigmatism. And this is kind of a weird condition. It pretty much just means that we have an irregularly shaped lens or cornea. And when that happens, the lens is not the spherical lens we're used to. It has some irregularities. So when we look at it, some parts of the lens may focus at the right spot, where other parts of the lens, if we come maybe a little bit closer to us, it'll focus at a different point. So what we have to do is, for astigmatism, it's a little bit harder to correct. It is still able to be corrected somewhat, is that we need to realize that the lens and the cornea will have a different shape and correct each part of that lens and cornea individually. So again, put in a new thing. This lens now has different shapes to it. It's also the same way why bifocals will work, or trifocals, is we look at different areas, we see what's going to be, where the lens is going to be slightly deformed. And some part of it will focus and some other parts will focus slightly differently, but the whole point is we want the image to show back up here. So the last thing to mention about this is that with laser eye surgery, the way we can, kind of a new technique for correcting this, is they go in and they actually reshape the cornea, I believe, and that means that the new lens cornea pair has a different focal length, and hopefully that focal length automatically shows up at the right spot, at the retina. So we do this in more of a permanent manner. So instead of adding in a new lens in it, we reshape the old one, and that's how laser eye surgery happens. The one thing that's really interesting about laser eye surgery is we're actually damaging the eye, but we're damaging it in a way that we want to damage. So kind of an interesting stuff, but in all, this is kind of what happens with the eye and some of the medical issues that happen with the eyes.